answering your questions and diving a little deeper. This is the Midweek Rewind.
All right. Well, everybody, welcome once again to the Midweek Rewind. I think we're on episode 41 or something like that. So we're just cranking along here. So thank you for those of you watching live. And again, if you're listening to the podcast later or Facebook or YouTube, thank you so much for your time. We're always grateful for that. Got quite a few things we want to get to today. So, hey, Brent, how are you doing down the hall?
Doing great. Yeah, down the hall is right.
Yep.
Doing good. It's a good day.
Well, Brent, so again, we're just in this weird time warp where you and I, we did this exact thing a week ago, and we were getting ready to talk about hope, and we were reopening, and it seemed like things were kind of getting better, and we're kind of excited about what looks like might be coming down the road. And then it just seems like we just came to a screeching halt, and we don't know what's going on anymore. So how are you doing today, Brent?
I think when I take personality tests, I'm a high change person. I like variety. I wouldn't enjoy a job that had the same routine every single day. And so I'm a change guy, but I'm telling you, this pushes you. There's the twists and turns in this pandemic reality. You just get settled into the new, and then there's another new.
Yep.
And you always think that won't happen to us, but now we're into the mask world. But yeah, it's constant change, but it was still great to get back together. We had 15 weeks of online, but by calendar, we were not meeting for 16 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It was a long time. And it was really great to have everybody. And I'm glad right now the plan is for us to continue meeting. And who knows what the next few weeks and months will bring. But I know, Brent, you've actually done quite a bit of research. Like what I stopped in the hall the other day, and you kind of went down what the governor's ruling or whatever means for us and how the counties might change that. And can you give us a quick rundown just so we're all on the same page of all the research you've done?
Well, yes, and it comes with risk in case I'm wrong, but
and it'll probably change in 4 minutes. But yeah, go ahead.
My understanding is that the governor of Kansas has constitutional authority to make health restriction recommendations during pandemics for the safety of the state. Okay, there's always been debate whether there's overreach. This isn't just Kansas and that kind of thing, but the reality is that the governor's mandates are automatically opt-in for the counties. And so when she says masks starting Friday, July 3, counties are automatically lumped into that. But in Kansas, the counties do have an option of voting against that. And so if you don't do anything, we're in a mask-wearing county. So that's where we are. And so we're currently waiting whether the Sedgwick County Commission is going to opt out of the mask-wearing mandate. I don't think they will. I think it'd be a pretty risky political move. In other words, the pressure out there is to wear masks. Mm-hmm. And for the county commissioners to say, no, we're not going to abide by the governor. We're going to be a no mask required county. They could decide that. They're meeting this afternoon. We'll wait and see. Yeah. Wait and see. But unless they opt out of the thing, we're an opt-in, if that makes sense. We are automatically under this mask wearing. So on Friday.
Yep.
Mask for everyone in Kansas in public places.
Well, so like you just mentioned, they're still deciding a lot of this today. So this is Thursday. They're still working on a lot of this. Just a peek behind the curtain, I think is interesting. Brent, you and I are filming a video this afternoon where we're going to film 3 different videos based on what the county says and what will go out to the whole church on Friday. Tomorrow afternoon, we're going to send an email. But we're going to film 3 different things, and because we don't know what the county's going to say. So it's just crazy, this mess that we're in. And anything else specifically about Sunday before we kind of take a next step here?
Well, my assumption, and we'll formalize this on Friday, but my assumption is we will be, for lack of a better word, it sounds harsh, we're going to ask everyone to comply with the mask wearing mandate of the governor, to submit to those in authority over us, and to wear masks. So it will be a strange thing to kind of have a, hey, if you want to come to church, you got to wear a mask. Okay. And that obviously will sit very well with people who are in favor of masks. It will sit fine with those of us who are in the middle and saying, hey, the government says wear it, I'll wear it. If I don't have to, probably won't. But then it won't sit well with good folks who, for a variety of reasons, whether they think it's government overreach, whether they have, kind of locked onto some of the medical experts who minimize the effectiveness of masks, and those medical expert opinions are out there, whether they're minority or not. And so really, I think we're just hoping that it runs smoothly, and I'm not all worried about whether someone's going to come in rogue and say, I'm not wearing a mask, let me in, no one's going to keep me from church. I really don't see that as happening, but we are honestly asking our church family to submit. Doesn't matter whether you like the speed limit or not.
Yep.
You have to obey the speed limit. Doesn't matter if you like all the laws. We're under the authority. That's what God says. So it really doesn't matter whether I like wearing masks or I think it's the best decision. It's pretty black and white. So, yeah, it's going to be way different. I'm going to be sitting there, and now with 6 feet social distancing, you don't have to wear it. So when I preach and when folks sing, we're going to do the social distancing, and I'm not going to wear a mask while I preach on Sunday. I will wear a mask when I'm singing and sitting in the front row. I want to model that. And so, but it's going to be weird.
Yeah, it'll be very weird. And you and I, again, we talk about this every week. Like, we're in uncharted waters. We've never really had to deal with this before. I truly believe that people are just doing the best they can. That we're learning information all the time. It's just crazy. And throughout the process, and this will be another example of this, where some people are probably going to think we're being way too conservative. Some people think we're being way too stringent on things. And like, we're probably going to hear, oh, like, you're just giving into fear. We shouldn't be afraid of this. So if someone's kind of in that camp where they think this is just crazy, and whether it's a government thing or if it's just giving in to the chaos, if someone listening or watching kind of feels like that, what would you say to them?
I would say, let's assume that you're right. It doesn't change anything. Those in authority over us have said we need to wear a mask. So we do it. And I guess I'm looking at it pragmatically. It doesn't matter to me whether it's immense government overreach and all the scientists are just scared and masks isn't going to really help in the end. Even if that position is right, it doesn't change what we're going to have to do on Sunday and when I go to Dillon's or Target.
Yep.
As followers of Christ, it's just pretty well a black and white issue. So I would encourage them to remove the who's right argument. And if they're a follower of Christ, I'd actually manipulate them. Say, well, read your Bible, dude. Come on. It says you submit to those in authority. It doesn't matter whether you like the law or not.
Yeah.
You're obligated to it as a follower of Christ.
Yep.
So
I think, the more I'm thinking about it, I think I might wear a mask like this. Would that help stop the virus, do you think?
Well, it supposedly doesn't cover the spit droplets or something.
Okay.
It only covers the forehead sweat.
Right. But it looks so much cooler than the mask I have. I don't know. But
so will you are you by nature just a rule follower, and whether you are a mask wearer naturally or not, will it put you in a bad mood to wear a mask when you go out in public or come to church?
I won't like it. I admit I haven't been wearing one unless it's been in a situation where I was kind of required to. So I mean, the thing that I think people forget is no one enjoys wearing a mask. Like we keep saying, if you're the most comfortable, go ahead and wear a mask. Masks aren't comfortable for anyone. So I will do it. I'm not happy about it, but I don't land on the overreach side. Like I'm just not convinced in that camp. So I'll do it. I'm not going to enjoy it, but I don't know. I'm not too worked up about it politically or anything like that. But Brent, when you and I were just chatting a few minutes ago, and you said that this is kind of actually a discipleship issue, or it's a chance for us to model discipleship. We didn't really get very far. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So if you grew up in the church or something, you're going to know something about the Great Commission from Matthew 28. And Jesus gave us our life goal to make disciples. And, in our church, we've marketed that, make disciples, with this find and follow Jesus, because a disciple has to start at some point. A disciple of Jesus has to start at some point by finding Jesus as their Savior, and then they follow. So that's our mandate from Jesus. And it's just so easy for us to get caught up in proving our position or debating with someone with a mask or how it's spread or the models or flatten the curve, or is this a conspiracy? What about, are you a Republican or Democrat? And, it's so easy for us to get down into the weeds of that. And we stay there. Like, I was we were eating lunch together with some of the staff yesterday, and I just remarked, you could hear at every table, they were all talking about COVID.
Yep.
There has never been a time in history when there has been a more unified topic of discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Never, not even close. Everyone, air quotes, around the world is talking about the same thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so our natural tendency is just to stay in the weeds. And what I was saying to you was, we need to rise above this and say, okay, how do I walk as a disciple through this? As opposed to, hey, let's just talk about COVID. Do you like it or not? Masks or not? Are they going to have school or not? What do you do? And so for me, I just jotted this down, and it would probably change with tomorrow, but I thought, what words would Jesus want me to hold on to as a follower of him through the pandemic? Like, if he said, Brent, I want you to keep these words in front of you. I think they would be words like joy. I think they'd be words like we talked about on Sunday, hope. I think it'd be thankfulness. I think it would be do everything for God's glory. And that's what I meant when I said this is a discipleship thing, that our privilege, and I don't think this way a lot of times, Matt, but our privilege and duty as a Christian is to filter life through my Jesus eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Everything gets interpreted through the reality that I'm a follower of Jesus. And so every conversation is filtered, and you think, how do I express thankfulness, joy, peace, hope, perseverance, good attitude, do everything for God's glory? I interpret life through that filter, as opposed to just all of that pandemic just gets dumped on me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a discipleship opportunity to do everything for God's glory, and regardless of the circumstances. So,
yeah. Yeah.
Too many people interpret Jesus through the circumstances. So that example, you interpret Jesus through the circumstances. So your mom died. So you lost your job. So your best friend betrayed you.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes the primary event. And now you say, God must not care. Jesus doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
So what you've done is you've interpreted Jesus through the circumstances.
Uh-huh.
But we're always supposed to interpret the circumstances through Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And that we look at the circumstances through that filter.
Yep.
And that's that should be a mark of every disciple.
Mm-hmm.
Say, we don't interpret God through the circumstances. We interpret the circumstances through God, because he is our center. Yep. And if we do that, we say, okay, these circumstances won't last. They're not eternal. I still should be thankful. I still should be joy-filled. There is a hope. Mm-hmm. I just need to do everything for God's glory. I could live in a democracy or a communist country equally well for God's glory. It doesn't matter the circumstances.
Yeah.
See, it's that you're filtering the circumstances through your God lens.
Mm-hmm. That's good. You should preach on that. That sounds like a sermon.
Overrated.
Good. I think we've talked about this too, Brent, but one thing that I've thought about a few times is it's just funny, the timing of all this. Like we mentioned recently that you had been planning on talking about anxiety and stress and everything, and that just happened to land right now. But then once we decided to get back together, you wanted to do a single message on hope. The world seemed a lot more hopeful 4 days ago. So it's just funny. It's interesting timing that happened. And the next sermon series is about end times. And so, I mean, again, this has been planned for months, and it's now everyone's convinced this is the end of the world. And so it's great timing. I don't know about you, Brent, but like I just mentioned, like on Friday, Saturday, I was feeling pretty hopeful. Like we were getting back together. It did seem like things were kind of calming down. Your message is all about hope and joy and peace. And I was like, we were all singing together in the same room. And it was like, yeah, I feel hopeful. And then I don't know about if you're feeling this way, Brent, but for some reason, the mask thing, I think it's just because it felt like we were making progress. And then it just felt like immediately, no, we're going backwards. And it feels like that decision, stuff for the fall feels even more up in the air. I don't know what that, like my wife and I were talking about, what does that mean for her job? So it just feels like we were on this incline where things are getting better. And then right now we're at this point where it's tempting to just plummet. And you just talked about the importance of, don't, like you just said, seeing, in the Romans 13:15 or whatever, that God wants to overflow us with hope. And I felt that. And then now I'm on the edge, or I'm ready to crash again. Are you feeling that? And does the timing of all this just stand out to you as kind of ironic too?
If I felt that, it was short-lived, but that's just just my personality.
You're pretty happy no matter what happens.
What's interesting is this Sunday is on the mind game of decision making. Mm-hmm. And the church, at least in the rough draft so far, is going to hear some real life examples of the dilemma, the paralysis, the uncertainty of making decisions around the coronavirus. I mean, how many hours upon hours upon hours has the staff spent, and every church has spent hours trying to decide, what do we do?
Yeah.
And there are so many choices. They call it choice overload. Mm-hmm. So there are now 1,800 different majors in the various colleges and universities in the United States.
Wow.
When you have increased choice, you have increased decision-making difficulty. Mm-hmm. So you're even trying to decide what restaurant you eat at. There's hundreds of restaurants.
Yep.
And then you sit down and they throw a menu in front of you. And this is true. 2019, the average number of menu choices in the top 500 restaurant chains, 132, I think.
Hmm.
You know how many choices McDonald's? I just looked this up this morning. McDonald's has 140 choices.
Yep. It's crazy.
Okay, so when we live in a world of choice, you have to decide which pair of shoes to wear, which shirt, which pair of pants, or whatever. I mean, a bunch of us have to decide which car we're driving.
Yeah.
You know, there are just choices everywhere. And on the COVID thing and churches and, okay, when do we start up? Do we do kids? When do we do kids? Do we do social distancing? Do we do coffee? What do we ask? How do we say it in a letter? We can say it this way. We can say it this way. Okay, I'm recording a video. Should I say that we are requiring you to wear masks? Or should I say, we're asking you to comply with the governor's mandate and you're supposed to follow the Bible? I mean, when there are so many choices, you end up in, they call it paralysis by analysis.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you and I were all too plagued with the pressure of making the right choice.
Yep.
So we sit there and we loop. But yeah, it hasn't been for me the discouragement of, oh, now we got to wear masks. I thought we were getting better. We're back together. For me, the heavier load is the decision-making process.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't want to make anyone mad. And I have these visions of someone walking up to the church on Sunday and they know that they're supposed to wear a mask, and our greeters put on a happy face and say, hey, glad you're here. You got a mask? No one's going to tell me to wear a mask. I can't. You tell me I can't worship God without a mask. I'm going to, and I just think, how do we decide ahead of time to express it and remind people? And, it's just crazy.
It is crazy. I'm looking forward to your sermon. The whole decision choice thing, I think it's something I struggle with, and I think everyone does, and it's not getting any easier, I don't think. So yeah, looking forward to that. I want to make sure we have time to get to it. We got a question here from our friend Marshall. She asks, what do you say to those who believe that this is God's judgment on our nation?
There's a viral video going around. Matt, you and I both watched it yesterday. Separately, but we watched it, of a guy who had 3 dreams, and it's a pretty alarming prophecy of the chaos and catastrophe that could come on our nation. But what's interesting is this is a worldwide thing. So, but yeah, there have always been those throughout all of history who have said this is the judgment of God. So my answer to Marshall's question is the COVID a judgment on God? And I'm not trying to ride the fence here. It could be. Psalm 115 verse 3 says, our God lives in heaven. He does whatever he pleases. If he wants to drop COVID and a pandemic on this planet to try to get them to look up, he has every right to do it. Every right. What was it, Haggai, where he said, you plant your crops, but you never have a harvest. You put on clothes, but you're never warm. You put your money in a purse that has holes in it. And that was a clear judgment on them. He was trying to get their attention. God has every right. And the line there is, give careful thought to your ways. Is this a time to live in your paneled houses while my house remains in ruins? And so I have always been reluctant to declare that a particular catastrophe is God's judgment. I just don't number one, I'm not sure why that's my responsibility to declare that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will speak confidently is God has every right to drop hardship on us on this planet to try to get our attention, to make us look up. He's done that throughout history, and he can continue to do it. So if this pandemic, the judgment of God for our sin worldwide, and he's trying to wake us up and say, don't just look to yourself. You are not your savior. There's a God. You need to follow him. He has every right to.
Mm-hmm.
I do think we're wasting an opportunity to just stay in the weeds and argue about whether masks are necessary. I think it would be good for us to give careful thought to our ways. Whenever something bad happens, I mean, we shouldn't just assume that when I get cancer, that's God's judgment on me. Okay. But God often uses hardship to get our attention. And whether you call it judgment or discipline, that's a fine line. But we're wasting this opportunity if we don't pause and say, is God trying to tell us anything here? Is he trying to tell us anything? So, Marshall, that's my best shot. Boom. Don't know if I hit a single or a double, but it very well could be. And we shouldn't waste this opportunity or this pandemic by not giving careful thought to our ways and saying, is God trying to get our attention?
Mm-hmm. And I think whether it is or isn't, we can respond appropriately, because the truth is we don't know, right? I mean, I think go ahead, run with that thought.
God has every right to judge us.
Yeah.
As a nation, as a world, we have turned our backs on God. Okay, mm-hmm. So he has every right to judge us. He's God. He can do whatever he pleases, right? I am reluctant to forecast something as a specific upcoming judgment, mm-hmm. or to label a particular tornado, or you get cancer, or a pandemic, to label that as God's judgment. I don't know why I'm hesitant. I just mm-hmm. I do believe that if he were judging us, it would be more than deserved.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I keep remembering too, was it just last week when we were talking about worry? Was that just 1 week ago? I have no idea. But that keeps ringing in my mind too, is that, I think a lot of people are quick to jump to, oh, this is one step closer to this, and that means that the government's going to do this, and we're closer to this. And it seems like every new thing has a tendency to spiral into all the what ifs of what could happen. And I think more than ever, we need to remember that, do not worry about tomorrow. Like, you just have to plug along a day at a time, right?
Yeah, I think that when there are a lot of Christians who see the bad things going on with alarm, but we're supposed to long for his appearing, and Jesus said bad things are going to happen. So we should actually welcome these bad things in the hope that this is the end. But if I'm going to do that, I want to do that with joy and say, hey, actually, this wouldn't be a bad thing if the pandemic resulted in next November, Jesus' rapture. Mm-hmm. And if this is the prelude to the end, why am I all alarmed about that? Mm-hmm. It's a good thing if that's the case. But I'm very reluctant to label events mm-hmm. as end time events. We have been in the end times since Jesus rose and ascended back to heaven. Yeah. God's timing is not ours. And where's that psalm that says, a day to the Lord is as 1,000 years to us? Mm-hmm. I mean, God could be sitting up in heaven right now, saying, hey, Jesus, hey, it's noon. Hey, you're going to return in 5 hours. Mm-hmm. Well, that could be 300 years from now.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So we have always been in the end times, and the danger of Christians who demand that God fit into their time scale is just, I don't see it as having a biblical basis. So anyway, that's another sermon.
Yep. That was for free, as you like to say. All right, well, hey, Brent, our time's up. I don't know if we really got any questions answered, but I think we're all, like you and I, wrestling with the same things everyone else is wrestling with. So if you're watching or listening again, we'll send out an email late tomorrow with the latest of what we're doing for Sunday. Right now, we will meet in person. We will require masks, and we'll have some details spelled out by the end of the day tomorrow. But I hope all of you continue to meet with us in person if you're comfortable with that. Or again, we'll be online. We'd love to have you join us either way. And I just think we need to hang on to a lot of the things you said today, Brent, about, or I guess it was a couple weeks ago when you talked about being a Christ follower before you're a warrior, a rule follower, whatever the little tweetable phrase was. But so we'll just hang in
there before you're a problem solver.
There you go. There you go. Yep.
Put it in the seek first the kingdom.
Yep, that's good. All right. Well, anything else before you wrap up, Brent?
Looking forward to Sunday. Masks and all, it is a privilege to be together and to worship and to open the Bible and to pray. We can still have some fellowship. It's looking forward to Sunday. It will be awkward and different. None of us really have ever done this.
Right.
And it's the strangest thing, but it's going to be okay.
Yep. Speaking of tweetable catchphrases, our friend Kyle down the hall, Kyle Goings, always says, embrace the awkward. So we're going to embrace the awkward this week.
We will.
Do the best we can with the masks. So, all right, Brent, well, hey, thanks for your time today. And as always, we're grateful for those of you watching and listening. Thank you for spending some time with us. And we will see, hopefully, a bunch of you on Sunday, and we'll be back right here next week as well. So thanks for watching. See you next time.
See you later.
Thanks for joining us today. Matt and Pastor Brent go live on the First MB Church Facebook page every Thursday at noon. If you can't watch live, the archive is available anytime on Facebook, YouTube, or the First MB app. If you prefer to listen on the go, you can also subscribe to the podcast by searching for the Midweek Rewind in your favorite podcast provider. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Midweek Rewind.